Hello and welcome to Caregivers First, a show brought to you by SCAN. SCAN is a nonprofit agency dedicated to helping active adults stay informed, empowered, and inspired. I am your host, Lynette Whiteman, and I am the Executive Director of Caregiver Volunteers of Central Jersey. Caregivers First was developed to give you knowledge and help you navigate this time in your life. Our guests will provide you with the latest information and tips to make your life easier. We hope to give you real-life tools and let you know you are not alone. I'd like to welcome my guest today, Beth Kodran, who is a registered nurse and a geriatric case manager. Welcome, Beth. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your background as a geriatric care manager, and tell me about what you're doing now with the Alzheimer's Respite Care program.
Well, I basically got into geriatric care management because of home care. I was the administrator of a nonprofit or not-for-profit home care agency, and then later some other agencies. So with that, I started doing long-term care assessments and got into the geriatric care management piece. So as I moved along and I got closer to retirement, I started doing more geriatric care management, where we went into people's homes and we did medication. We dealt with the caregivers that may be at a distance. So we were their eyes and their ears with their parents or their loved ones.
So, and now you are the program manager for the Alzheimer's Respite Care program, which is a program through Caregiver Volunteers of Central Jersey. So full disclosure, Beth and I work together. So tell me about the Alzheimer's Respite Care program and what that is.
Well, it was set up, and I just started in January.
Yeah.
So as Lynette knows, I'm sorry. And I just started in January. So what happened was I was working with a friend, Fran Pinella, on other things, and she asked me to come work at Caregiver Volunteers. I was going to volunteer, so this just fit in perfectly. The Alzheimer's Respite Care program fits in perfectly in my background, also with geriatric care management. Mm-hmm. So we provide volunteers once a week, 2 to 3 hours a week, for the caregiver, for respite for the caregiver, for them to be able to go out and just take a walk or get some rest or go out with friends, go to a doctor's appointment, shopping, things like that.
Wonderful. So. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the journey of caregivers through this world of Alzheimer's dementia. So first, let's go real basic. A lot of people talk about Alzheimer's disease. They say their loved one has dementia. What is the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? How can people differentiate that?
Well, there are a couple of different ways, actually. There's the first thing you need to do is have the loved one go to a physician. They need to be tested. So it could be lab work. It could be differentiated from different disease processes. There is something called pseudo dementia, which is actually a depression and can mimic dementia. Sorry. And so there's a difference between the Alzheimer's disease process and the dementia. Dementia a lot of times will just be a normal aging. It's age-related dementia. Mm-hmm. So it's people forget things. They don't understand certain things as they get older. Their memory span, isn't that great as it used to be, where Alzheimer's is actually a disease process, a little bit more intense. So they'll go for lab work, they'll go for CAT scans, MRI testing, they'll go for long-term memory programs where the doctor will assess what's going on with the person.
Right. When I explain it to families, I like to say that dementia, and I think the Alzheimer's Association says this, is like an umbrella.
It is.
So Alzheimer's is one type of dementia, and then you have Parkinson's disease or alcohol-related.
Yes.
So it's sort of a generic term for memory problems and memory loss.
Yes.
But if a caregiver is worried about somebody, their spouse or their parent, because they're forgetting things or they see changes, and they go to a doctor and they say, oh, you're just getting old, it's just a normal part of aging, they should look further than
Yes,
that, correct?
yeah.
Like you shouldn't accept that as
No.
just a normal part
No.
of aging.
And it would be beneficial if they went to someplace that actually did age-specific testing, you know, that would do an MRI or a CAT scan, would do the lab work to rule out the other diseases, so it's not just dementia,
Right.
age-related dementia, or they're just forgetting things. It helps to go to a doctor that specialty is either geriatrics or Alzheimer's or dementia. You know, it helps.
So somebody has been suspecting their loved one has it, like in the back of their mind, but they're holding out hope that they didn't, or there's something else. They go to the doctor, they get the diagnosis. Yes, your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother has Alzheimer's disease. So this is the first step in their journey, really, this diagnosis. What are the first things that you would tell a family to do once they get the diagnosis?
One of the first things I tell them to do is have a family meeting. I try to get everybody on the same page as much as possible, and everybody may come from a distance, or they can do this over the phone. They can get everybody together and just say, we went to the doctors, this is what the doctor has told us, and we need to move forward from here. So I need to make some decisions, you know, and everything going forward. So what we would do from that point on is have them educate themselves. Education is the most important things. Everyone can go back, they can find out, you know, what is Alzheimer's, what is dementia, you know, what are they talking about at this point. I tell them to make sure that they have affairs in order, you know, such as going to an elder attorney and getting wills, living wills. Living will doesn't have to be done by an elder attorney, but if they're there for a will, they may, you know, help them also with a living will. But appoint a healthcare proxy. Everything that can be done now while their loved one is still cognizant and able to make decisions and interact with the people, you know, within the family and the loved ones. So, yeah.
So really, it's don't go into denial. Educate yourself and talk to your family about what's going forward, and really let the person speak for themselves, so that you're not making the decision for them when they aren't able to speak for themselves. Is that
exactly?
Is that it?
Exactly. And the thing is too, you don't want the family to be on a different page from each other. You want you don't need all this infighting, and denial is fine at the beginning, and you find that a lot. But the thing is, there's a time for denial, and then they have to move on. They have to be able to move on. So you want to, you know, make an atmosphere that's conducive to communication among the whole family and the person, actually the person themselves. You know, this is what I want. This is what we expect. You know, and then at this point in time, just make sure that that's all taken care of. So, yeah.
What about? I hear people that when they get that diagnosis, they think, okay, I have a few good years or whatever left. Do you suggest that they go on that trip that they were always thinking of going on, or take advantage of that time?
And we had talked about that also.
Yeah.
It's like make memories while you can, because the people that are around the person that's affected with the Alzheimer's or the dementia are going to have those memories, but so is the person that has Alzheimer's or dementia. They also remember things. You know, it's amazing the things that they remember when you think that they really don't, but they'll say, when we went on that trip, you know, when people come in, when friends come in also, it's to give a little bit of education about, don't say, you remember. Try to educate them from your reading about what you should say to them. You know, just say, oh, you know, Johnny, when Johnny was 3, and see if they, you know, and sometimes they'll shake their head, or, you know, they may not remember, but don't press the point with them. Yeah.
So the first stage is knowledge is power and planning.
Yes.
Right? That's the two
Informed
takeaways.
caregivers.
Be an informed caregiver.
Yeah.
Okay, so now maybe 7-8 years have passed, and you might be moving into the middle stages of the illness. So talk a little bit about what a caregiver or a family could be seeing as their loved one is moving into that next stage.
You'll be seeing a few different things. You might see where all of a sudden they'll be asking, even in the beginning, but it gets more complicated. They'll be asking the same questions over and over. They won't remember the answers that you gave them. Patience, patience, patience. It's really a big point. It's with everyone that it's not that they purposely are forgetting, they really are not remembering. So they might see that. They might see where they start to roam, or they might to get up at night. So you may have to adjust your schedule. It's very important that there be someone there that's going to help the caregiver. You know, it may be necessary for them to make a schedule among the family. You know, I'll be here on Monday, I'll be here on Tuesday. If someone offers to help you, you know, give them concrete things. Can you make dinner for me? Or can you come sit for mom on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock? You know, very specific. And then people, if they offer, they feel like they're really contributing also. So you're going to notice that they're going to need more supervision, that they're going to need, the caregiver is going to need some respite, and that's where the volunteers come in, you know, from Caregiver Volunteers, where we have the respite program, where they can come and sit with them for a few hours, and they bond. You know, we also have a music, you know, connection with music program, because everybody has fond memories of some type of music. You remember something and you could say, I was 14 when that happened. Well, that's what happens with people that have Alzheimer's and dementia. They may not always remember everything, but they do remember songs and things in their past that are related to music. So
I think one of the hard things with Alzheimer's disease for caregivers is, if somebody has another illness, let's say cancer or something, you'll see the illness. So the person will get jaundiced, or they'll start to lose weight. Or with Alzheimer's, the brain is being affected. The brain is being taken away, but you can't see it. So the person might look absolutely normal in the outside, but their brain is actually, it's a disease.
Yes.
And they're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it to be obstinate. And that's a hard thing for caregivers to grasp onto, or other people as well.
And sometimes they become aggressive. They become agitated because we expect something of them that they can't give you.
Right.
Or also, we don't know what the family relationships were like. The dynamics are unbelievable in any disease process. I mean, you know that. You know, whether it's heart disease or anything, when we're going through surgeries, people always remember certain things. They cling on to things from their past. So I have a different relationship with my mother than my brother has with my mother, or that you may have as a friend with my mother. So there are those types of things.
Okay. So middle stages is when you're going to start seeing behavior issues come up.
Correct.
This is really when a caregiver is going to need to have some help. They're going to need to have some respite. They're going to be tired if the person is waking up in the middle of the night. They might need to go, you know, to take a nap during the day. So this is really when they need to sort of get specific with people and say, I need help. Yes. Let's make a schedule. Let's do something that's really going to help us along the way here.
And we have a lot of caregivers that are still working. I mean, they're not of an age that they're retired, so they're still working. They're trying to work this into their schedules. They may have moved their parent in or their loved one in with them, but the person is still there. So the person will go to work, the caregiver will go to work, and then they come home, and then they have to deal with all of this, because they may have had somebody there for, like, you know, a home health aide or something during the day, but then it's all theirs at night. So we have that piece of it. We also have them raising families, you know, especially when we have early onset. You know, that's just one, but we have those.
So we're going to take a short break now, and we're going to come back. So we will be right back with Beth Kodran, who is the program manager for the Alzheimer's Respite Care program, and we're going to continue on our journey in Alzheimer's disease. So stay with us.
You probably already know that rehabilitation is a must for successful recovery from surgery, injury, or serious illness. What you may not know is that you're free to choose where you go for rehab. In Monmouth and Ocean County, the compelling choice is Care One. Where you choose to go for rehab matters, and with Care One, you have 4 convenient locations to choose from in Monmouth and Ocean counties. Care One at Jackson, Care One at Wall, Care One at Homedale, and Care One at King James in the Atlantic Highlands. At Care One, you'll work with a team of experts to develop a plan based on your needs and goals. You'll have the full support of caring, compassionate physicians, RNs, licensed therapists, and nutritionists dedicated to helping you recover successfully without setbacks at a pace that makes you comfortable and successful in meeting your rehabilitation goals. Once you take the first step with us, you'll never look back. Call 877-99-CARE-1 today and come for a tour.
Welcome back to SCAN and Caregivers First. I am your host, Lynette Whiteman, Executive Director of Caregiver Volunteers of Central Jersey, and I'm having a really interesting conversation with Beth Kodran, who is the Program Manager for our Alzheimer's Respite Care program. So Beth, before the break we were talking about the middle stage, okay? So let's jump ahead in time, and we're going into maybe 10, 15 years into the illness, and everybody's different. You don't know how quick somebody's going to go, but we're entering into the later stage of the illness. How is that defined? What do caregivers face in the later stages of Alzheimer's disease?
You're going to see a lot of different behaviors. People may lose their speech. They may just forget how to eat. There's basic things that they are starting to not be able to do. So you may notice that there's a loss of weight because they forget how to eat or they don't eat that much. You're going to notice that they may be agitated, they may be aggressive, they may be totally not like the person that they've been married to for 60 years, as someone told me. You know, this is not my husband. This is, this is just the way that it is. So. They need to start thinking about getting some extra help. One of the things that people don't like a lot of times with Alzheimer's or dementia, they don't like to shower. They don't like to bathe. Sometimes it's easier to get a home health aide in there because they react better with a paid caregiver rather than the loved one that they've been with, know. So they need to look into that. They need to look into possibly some adult daycare, that's meant for Alzheimer's or dementia. The programs are very specific for that. They do some stimulation. They try to get them to play cards, or they try to get them to, do puzzles, things like that. They may be able to get them to do more than you would be able to get them to do at home because they're around other people. The music, they play music, they dance, they do different things like that.
Right. So one of the most interesting things I hear is that people in the later stages lose their filter, so they start swearing where they never swore before as an adult, or they'll start being really, really honest with people. They just lose their filter, and that generally just makes caregivers they get really embarrassed, and you always wonder, or I always wonder, were they always thinking that before? Like, did they always swear in their head and they just never did it? Or this is really a different side of their personality? But
and it can be both. And it can be a cover-up. A lot of times people will cover up with smart aleck remarks.
Yes.
They'll laugh. They'll do things that are inappropriate just because they don't know how to react. They really didn't understand what you asked them.
Right.
They didn't understand the situation. So all of a sudden you'll see somebody, like you said, curse.
Yeah.
Or they'll just, and they'll come out with some things, and then the caregiver's like, I'm really sorry.
Right.
She didn't used to be like this. Just like I said, the wife said, this isn't the man I was married to for 60 years, And a lot of times as we age, we do tend to have a little less filter anyway. So then you add the disease process into it, and it just makes it even more difficult.
So talk about the difficulty in when the person with Alzheimer's disease is in a different reality. So it's a sunny, beautiful day, and they start saying, it's snowing out, or put on my boots, it's snowing out. Talk about how a caregiver can manage that reality difference that they want to bring that person back to.
sometimes, you just have to say to them, no, Mom, it's really a nice day. Let me show you. Let me take you over to the window, and you see the birds are out there. Just let them, go where they're going to go. And sometimes you just have to let it go. Sometimes you just have to say, well, we'll be over this soon, and maybe it'll be sunny later, or that kind of thing.
Right.
So a lot of it is flexibility. A lot of it is going with the flow more than anything, because it's frustrating for the person and it's frustrating for the caregiver, and everyone else around them. And then as the caregiver becomes more stressed and doesn't take care of themselves, then what happens is then there's nobody to take care of the person, that's going through the disease process, so that's going through Alzheimer's and dementia.
Right. So let's talk about that. I think that most people, somehow in their brain, they think, I'm going to keep this person home with me. I know that my mother made me promise, don't ever put me in a nursing home, ever. I don't care. Shoot me up. Don't put me in a nursing home. I promise, I promise. But sometimes it's just not safe to keep that person home. It's out of the caregiver's control. How do you counsel families that have to make this decision?
It's a process. You have to basically give them a lot of attaboys kind of thing. You've done a great job. You've done everything you possibly for your parent or your loved one. You've been a great caregiver. You have to allow yourself now to let go. It's beyond you. It's going to be you or them sometimes, It's going to be no one. No one's going to be able to take care of the person that you're so worried about because you're not taking care of yourself. I've just had a patient or care receiver and caregiver situation where the caregiver just said to me she was just diagnosed with cancer. But she's not taking care of herself right now because her husband is now getting further along in the disease process. So, at that point in time, you may need to look into a facility. You may need to look into a facility that has memory care or a dementia program, or, there's a wing. There's usually a wing in a lot of the facilities that are dedicated just for that.
Right.
So.
And I think that gets back to your first point about having the family meeting. The family has to give that caregiver permission. If they're managing from California or whatever and saying, no, do this, or you can't do that, or you can't do that, that is just the worst.
No.
So just having that family on board and along the way and just validating the caregiver and letting them know that they need to take care of themselves as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also sharing with the doctor. A lot of times people will cover things up because they're embarrassed. So what they need to say is, this is what I'm going through. And the doctor may say to them, we need to adjust medication, we need to do something, and accept that, work with the doctor with that, and let the families then work together. Geriatric care managers do come into that because they can coordinate better. So you don't have everybody on a different page or a different agenda. So this is where we are, and communication is so important with each other. Just to say, this is where we are and this is where we need to go.
So tell me about with the Alzheimer's Respite Care program. Is there a certain match or a certain volunteer story that really stands out for you and made a difference for the family?
We just had one, as a matter of fact. The caregiver herself is in her 50s. She's still working. She lost her husband a few years ago. She's moved her, after her husband passed away, moved her mother in with her and added a wing on, for the mother to be there. But she's finding it more difficult because it's getting further along, and she's starting to try to go over to the neighbor's house. She's trying to do things for herself that are not appropriate, that she can't do. She's kind of made sure that she can't do certain things, but it's very frustrating to both of them. So what happens is she's now allowed us to match a volunteer. So we look at what the person likes, what the caregiver likes, and then we look at the volunteers and what their background is, and we try to match them up. So it's like a Match.com kind of thing.
Right.
It's got to be just right. But it was wonderful. It worked out very well the other day.
Oh, good. So did you have the match visit?
We did. We had the match visit, and they just seemed to click. Everybody clicked.
Good.
So
yeah, that's a happy happy story.
And it relieves the caregiver for a few
Right.
hours. She says, I can go to the gym, I can,
Yeah.
after work, and I think
Right.
she really needs it. So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So how do people find out about the Alzheimer's Respite Care program? What do they need to do to get help? Or if somebody wants to volunteer and give another caregiver a break, maybe they've gone through it themselves and they feel like, you know what, I want to give back now. What's the best way to contact the program?
Well, they can call Caregiver Volunteers of Central Jersey at 732-505-2273.
Right.
And we can also direct you to the Monmouth County office if it's the Monmouth County office you need versus the Ocean County office. But we take phone calls for volunteers. We set up an orientation for the volunteers. And then we set up another orientation for anyone that wants to volunteer in the Alzheimer's Respite Care program, which is a little more specific to that program.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's a great relief, and it's a great volunteer opportunity as well for people. They go all along the journey.
And it gives back something to both. It gives back to, the people, and it also gives back to the people that are involved, and it also gives back to the volunteers themselves.
And how do you, you're dealing with sad stories. You're dealing with people that are not going to get better.
No.
They're once you have this illness, it progresses. How do you take care of yourself? What do you do to leave it at the office? Or you don't?
You're asking me the wrong question. I'm a nurse for 32 years,
Okay.
so I never leave it at the office. I constantly am thinking what I can do or how I can help someone, and if I can't help them, where I can refer them. So, I mean, we have brochures. The Alzheimer's organization is great. They have lots of tips. You call over there and they'll direct you for caregiver support groups also. So we just want people to know they're not alone.
Right.
They're not alone. So, and even if the office is very interesting. Even if we don't have something, we brainstorm and we can figure out maybe this will help them or maybe that will help. So, it may not be exactly.
Right. And one of the things that that we had talked about before was when you first get that diagnosis, the plan ahead. When you're in that stage where you can think about not in a crisis situation, look at the volunteer organizations in your area, look at the area agency on aging, look at the daycare programs. I remember I got a call from somebody, she said, my husband was just diagnosed, I'm maybe going to need you in 7 years, but I want to put this down on a piece of paper, and I'm going to call you in 7 years. So that's
and it's true. I just had somebody out in the waiting room that took our number down and everything because she said her husband's mother had Alzheimer's. So she said, I'm just preparing, and that's a good thing. And like I said to an elder attorney, get your financial, because it's important that you need to know what you have to work with. You may not have a lot of money, but there's programs to keep people in the home. You may have to qualify for Medicaid at the end, where you can go into a facility, and place the loved one. So you want to know what the facilities are like. You want to know everything that's available.
Right. I think with everything, knowledge is power.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Beth, for being here today. You gave us great information.
Thanks.
And again, if you would like to find out more about the Alzheimer's Respite Care Program, you could call us at 732-505-2273, or we'll have our website up on the screen as well. So thank you for tuning into Caregivers First today. I hope that you learned something about it and it was helpful to you. And I'd love to hear from you. If there's a specific topic or something that you've been struggling with as a caregiver, please email us at office@scan.com and send us your show ideas and feedback. So everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you.